Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining our Friday weekly Lunch and Learn. Every Friday at noon, Sierra Club Iowa chapter goes live to give you another environmental update. And today we have an interesting one. This applies to any of the environmental issues you're working on. It's how to get more information that you think might exist, but they're not telling you about. We're going to talk about open records requests today. So I'm going to share my screen and then we will get started and talk about what open records are, why they're important, and how you can submit your own. So, open records. What are open records? It's a way for the public to gain access to information from governmental bodies like state agencies, counties, cities. So think like the DNR, the Attorney General's office, your local supervisors, your zoning, any governmental body. And the reason this is important is because a lot of business happens behind closed doors before it becomes public, or if it ever becomes public. So, for example, right now in Iowa, a lot of data centers are talking to local communities across the state, but we don't know about it until sometimes the project's too far along to stop it. So, open records can maybe give you an idea that something is happening in your community before it's been made public. That ensures transparency and accountability of our governments. We deserve to know what they're discussing, what they're envisioning for our future, and all of those documents should be something we have access to. Now, open records requests are kind of the same thing as Freedom of Information Act requests, but different. You may have heard them called FOIAs. FOIAs for federal, open records are for state and local. So we're talking about open records today. So anything for the state of Iowa and local governments. Now, this is one of the opening paragraphs of the Iowa Open Records Law, which is Iowa Code Chapter 22. We're not going to read all of it, but we do want to highlight that first sentence. Every person shall have the right to examine and copy a public record and to publish or otherwise disseminate a public record or the information contained in a public record. So you have this right to do so. And if you want to read more, just Google Iowa Code Chapter 22 and you can read the full law there. So what kind of things are considered public records? Well, lots of things, all records, documents, recording, tapes, or other information that's stored or preserved in any medium, whether it's online or in a file cabinet. And that belongs to the state or any county, city, township, or school corporation, political subdivision, nonprofit, other than the fair. So you have access to this information, and it goes on to have a few exclusions, which we'll talk about in a minute. But in general, most information, as long as it's stored or preserved by the governmental body, you should have access to. This also includes all records relating to the investment of public funds, including but not limited to investment policies, instructions, trading orders, or contracts, whether they're in the custody of the public body or someone that's the fiduciary or a third party. And in layman's terms, that means emails, texts, meeting notes, agendas, presentations, phone calls, fact sheets, and more. Things that are not included and will usually you'll get your request denied are anything about personnel information, any staff that's employed by the governmental body, access to certain databases or systems, and other things like that. If you submit a request and it's something that they cannot provide you, they will let you know why they cannot provide you that information. So there really aren't too many rules around it. You can submit your request in person, in writing, by telephone, or any other electronic means. And the governmental body must respond in a reasonable amount of time. They can charge you a fee for the records, not always the case, but they can charge you, per copy if they're making copies of it. Sometimes you'll get the paper copies of records. Sometimes you'll get it in the form of an email and a PDF that you download. So there's lots of different ways that you can get your records, and they can charge a fee for the request. And you can ask for them to waive that fee. They can say yes or no. Here's an example of an open records request, and you feel free to copy and paste this, and all you have to do is change the little area that's highlighted in green. So I just made an example of one for anyone who is curious if their local community has been in conversations with a data center. So feel free to copy and paste this if you're interested in looking this up in your local county or city. You put your date at the top and dear custodian of records, or you could do dear auditor, dear supervisor, but dear custodian of records covers everyone. I'm requesting a copy of the following records pursuant to Iowa Code Chapter 22, the Public Records Law. I would like any information, records, emails, applications, meeting notes, call logs, etc. with the keywords, and this is the part you edit. I, for the example, put in data center stuff. So data center, Google, Meta, Microsoft, QTS, NDA, or annexation. That would give me a pretty good idea if any of the people in that governmental body at the county have been talking with the data center company. Now, I want to highlight that NDA, non-disclosure agreement. One thing we're hearing a lot about with these data centers is that they are actually signing non-disclosure agreements with counties or cities, limiting the information that they can share. And so doing an open records request, you may not be able to get the information you're looking for, but you may be able to find out that there is an NDA. And then that's important to know because your decision makers have decided to keep important information private from the community. So that green section is what you change. You fill it in with any topic or keyword or name that you think would help get the results you're looking for. So it could be company name, a person name, a project name. But keep in mind, if you use terms like water or electricity, that's really, really broad and you may get too many results. You'd get every single thing that has the word water in it, and that might be a lot more than you're looking for. And then you continue on with your open records request. Please contact me with the expected time frame for the release of the records, or if you have any questions. They may get back to you and say, hey, can you be a bit more specific about this? They may ask you, is this what you mean? So they might get back to you with questions. And then you can also say, if there is a fee for fulfilling this request, please inform me in advance of the amount. Section 22.3 says that the fee shall not exceed the actual cost of providing the service. And then thank them and sign your name. So that is just a simple example. There's a link in the chat right now that you can use and copy and paste this and just change the keywords that you'd like to search. You can also submit really any kind of request in your own wording. You just need to make sure you're referencing the open records law and the end part. But these are some examples of open records requests that we've submit in the past few years. We want copies of all easement agreements submitted by Summit. We want any email, meeting notes, text, conversations regarding easements requested by Summit to cross DNR land. We can be very specific and list a bunch of different names that you would want them to search. You can search their calendars. Like in this request at the bottom, we were trying to figure out who is Governor Reynolds meeting with. So just, ask specifically what you're looking for. And if they're confused or need more information, that custodial record will get back to you. So very easy. Use the template or write your own, but you don't need to. Just copy and paste what we've already made and edit it for the specific information that you want. You can email, mail, or hand deliver it to the governmental body that you're requesting information from. So you can go deliver it to your county attorney or your county supervisor or your city council member or your mayor or your, the head of the DNR, whoever you're sending it to. And then you just wait for a response. If you think it's taking too long, follow up if necessary. And they may get back to you and say, well, this returned a lot of results and it's going to cost $800. In that instance, you can decline and say, no, never mind, I don't want this information. Or you can narrow your search. Maybe you put a few terms in there that were too broad. So just work with the person that you're emailing, but you do have a right to have access to this information. And it is a really good way to stay up to speed with what your government's doing before they make it public. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please let us know. Put those in the chat. We'll respond to them later. And we'll see you next Friday at noon. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.